Thanks, Al. And thank you for the invitation. It's true, it's my first time in Canada and first time in Vancouver. And I must say, if this is the least happy city in the country, I look forward to exploring the rest of it. I'm absolutely in love with the city, and I've had great hosts and met great people. But yes, it's true. I come from Copenhagen, where I run the Happiness Research Institute, and as Al said, basically what we try to do is we try to inform policymakers of causes and effects of human happiness. So we try to advise how do we create better framework conditions for better lives. So what I want to talk to you today is about this specific study that we did last year, where we tried to quantify happiness in a Danish city or Danish town. It's completely unpronounceable for non-Danish speakers, but it's called Dragør. You can refer to it as the Copenhagen suburb. I want to, of course, talk about what we did and what we found in the study, but also what the reactions were and what I felt or feel that we changed in the city for the better. Very briefly about the city. It's one of the smallest municipalities in Denmark, 14,000 people over 18 years. It's located close to our capital, and it's one of the most affluent ones in the country. So what we did was we tried to quantify quality of life on different dimensions, or quantify happiness. Both the dimension, which is sometimes referred to as the cognitive evaluative dimension, where we have respondents sort of take a step back and evaluate their lives. The other dimension we try to quantify is we call it the affective dimension, which is more about what kind of emotions, what kind of moods do people experience in their daily lives. So once we had that data, we tried to see what are the common denominators for those people who feel happy, what are the common denominators for unhappiness, what drives these things, and what can we, together with the city, do in order to increase happiness for the citizens. So overall, Dragør, the town, does fairly well. 65% of the people out there say 8, 9, or 10 if we ask them how happy do you feel all in all. And this is consistent with the picture we see elsewhere in Denmark. The average happiness level in the city was around 7.8. I actually understood from Grant earlier today, Vancouver's average is higher. Uh-oh, that's bad news. So you're doing better than one of the cities in apparently the happiest country in the world. But fairly good still. On the cognitive dimension. Also very good levels when it comes to the affective dimension. A lot of people feel joy, a lot of people feel happiness on a daily basis. We also have, of course, a list of issues, a list of challenges. A lot of people feel sad, anxious, but to me one of the most concerning numbers is the one down the bottom. I'm not sure whether you can read it at the back, but it says that 1 in 10 of our citizens do not see an overall purpose with their lives. And I think it's worrying for two reasons. First, I think it's a strong statement to say, I don't see a purpose with my life. To me, that would be quite alarming. Secondly, I would suspect that the actual number would be even higher, right? Remember, this is from a survey. I think there is some stigma attached to admitting that you do not see a purpose with your life. So I think the actual number is even higher. The good thing is, of course, there's some characteristics with the people who do see purpose or meaning with their lives. One of them is, of course, they are on average happier, but they're also much more inclined to taking part in community work. 50% of those people volunteer in different organizations. Only 10, 15% of the ones that do not see a purpose with their lives volunteer. But what we found was the key challenge, and this is coming back to what Al said earlier, is isolation. Feeling lonely is a driver of unhappiness, and it's also something that is quite widespread. In our study, and this is consistent with what we see elsewhere in Denmark, 15% say that they do feel lonely in their everyday lives. Another dimension in the isolation thing is also sort of the quality of relationships that we have. and almost 1 in 10 people in our town say that there is nobody in their network they can rely on in times of need, and there's nobody they can discuss personal matters with. And we know that's an issue because when we look at the relationship between our relations and our life satisfaction or our happiness, it's a really strong predictor of whether people are happy or not. So in our study, we divided people into 4 groups according to how happy they are with their relationships. Not at all happy, to some degree, or to a little degree, to some degree, or very much. And the number you see on top of the bar is that group's average happiness level. So those that are very satisfied with their relationships, average happiness level of 8.3. This number, 3.3, the average for those people that are not at all satisfied with their social relationships, is the lowest number we could detect, the lowest average for any group in our study. Just for comparison reasons, because you don't look at these numbers every day, there's only countries that are really poor, politically unstable, such as the Central African Republic, have averages of around 3.3. And for those of you that work with statistics, the correlation between our happiness with our social relationships, or our satisfaction with our social relationships, and happiness is almost 0.5, which is sort of a medium strong relationship. So we had a series of reactions to the city study. Why should a city start spending money on focusing on happiness? Should a city interfere with happiness of the citizens? And we've been called anything from communists to a camp of hippies that's just trying to spend more resources. And we had one national politician who wrote, he was from the right wing in Denmark. He wrote, the state shouldn't interfere with people's happiness. It's up to the people themselves to create their own happiness. And we replied in the same paper that if you're a national politician that doesn't think you can create framework conditions to improve people's lives, then why are you sitting in parliament? He got a little mad over that. But overall, the reactions has been really good. So what we try to do, of course, we try to see what can we do in order to increase the sense of community, relationships for people. And we did 3 things together with the city. First of all, we completely eliminated the fee to the local community center. There's a well-functioning community center. There's anything from bridge to martial arts to petang, but a lot of people, low-income groups, were not able to use the center because there were fees. So we eliminated that. The second initiative was to create more community gardens or urban gardens. It's very popular in many countries, I'm sure also here. Community gardens are good for several reasons. First of all, they're great to look at in the city. It's also an easy initiative to invite lonely people into. It doesn't carry the same social stigma as other initiatives do. It's easier to invite people into, come down this August, we're gonna harvest carrots. Doesn't hold this social stigma of you being lonely, and that's why we're inviting you. Another thing is, and that's the timing issue, the activities in the community gardens take place at the times where we know loneliness is the worst. Spring, summer, right now, what is happening? We're seeing, everybody's playing volleyball down by the beach in Stanley Park. Everybody's hanging out with their friends. Those are the times of year where lonely people feel loneliness the hardest because they can see the rest of the community flourishing. The last thing was that we now have a group of volunteers, youth, that are taking some of our senior citizens around town on bicycles such as this, touring the town of sites that is important to our senior citizens. It could be a childhood home where the senior citizen went to school. But common for all these things is that they're trying to build tighter, stronger community, having people meet each other from different groups. And all of these initiatives are actually also, they're very simple, they're very low tech, they're cost efficient. And these are just from our town. We see a range of activities across the world that is doing just the same. And we're trying to get inspiration for that as well. And that's also why I'm here today, to get inspiration from you guys so I can bring back home, so we can still keep our first place in the happiness rankings. But just in international examples, we see in the Netherlands since 2006, they have conducted what is called the National Neighbor Day, right? So it's something we actually used to do, having coffee with our neighbors, talking over the picket fence and so on. It's something we've forgotten to do over the last decades. In Holland, now, since 2006, they put it on the agenda. And you might say it's funny that we should have a national day to celebrate that or do that. Why don't we just do it by ourselves? But we also have Christmas, a tradition that brings people together in families. We might as well have one that brings neighbors together. It's a big success in the Netherlands. Thousands and thousands of cups of coffee are being drunk, neighbors alike. In Bristol, they've conducted a whole range of activities in their Happy City program. One of them has been to hand out Happy City points. When they see people doing something nice to a stranger, they hand out Happy City points, which you can purchase coffee in local stores for. Of course, there's some discussion, why don't people just do it by themselves? Should we really reward them for being nice? They should just be nice. And that's true as well. But I think it's an interesting and creative initiative. And we can actually also find inspiration in countries that most of us probably don't think of being very happy. In Afghanistan, they have what is called the mobile mini circus for kids. And it teaches them how to perform different sorts of circus activities. It teaches them how to juggle. It teaches them how to do acrobatics. But most importantly, it teaches them to engage in relationships, to be part of a community, to enjoy other people. And it teaches them that being part of something with other people can create quality of life for themselves. And I think I'm about out of time now, but I look forward to the discussion afterwards. So thank you for listening.